Perv Bunny, back again, starting off the week with a continuation of our breakdown of the top NBA salaries. But first, remember to click that like and subscribe. Okay, today we're going to break down numbers 31 through 40, starting at number 40. And who do we have but Al Horford, making his triumphant return to the Boston Celtics. Really, they probably should have never let him go, but at the price he ended up getting from Philly, it's completely understandable. The Philly signing never really made sense, and he never got a chance to really shine there unless Joel Embiid wasn't playing. OKC was okay, but really, he was just in the way of all those young players. Look, if he can grab some of that old mojo and be the thing that puts the Celtics over the top, then it will be totally worth it. Otherwise, he's an old wily vet who should be making maybe $10-12 million off the bench. And as such, this contract's a fucking overpay. Number 39, the fourth Ball brother, Jason Tatum, at $28 million a year. The Celtics made a historically great move trading down for him back in the draft, and they had a lot of early success. But since then, a series of arrogant errors by management has bogged down this team. Too much hoarding draft picks and hoarding young players. For years, Ainge bought into the hype that every trade he made had to be one that was completely unequal and completely in his favor. Having such outrageously high demands stagnated the growth of the Celtics. But none of that is Jason Tatum's fault. He's done what he's supposed to do. Ball out and continually improve his game. He's still young, and he hasn't just shown flashes of stardom, but of superstardom. This contract might be the most the Celtics are allowed to pay him, but it's a sick value. And at number 38, Miami's own Bam Adebayo, making $28 million a year. Bam is one of the best playmaking bigs in the game, and he's one of the best defenders and most versatile defenders in the game. He puts in the work, and he doesn't play afraid. That being said, currently his game does have some weaknesses and limitations. He's great defensively. He can guard 1 through 5, but the position he has the hardest time guarding is the center. And with him usually playing that position for the Heat, it makes for an obvious weakness other teams can take advantage of. And they do, as shown by how much the Heat get out-rebounded. I think the Heat gave Bam this max contract extension, not just for the player he is, but for the player they hope he'll become. If he becomes that franchise caliber player Miami thinks he can be, this is a fucking steal. But if he doesn't, now that doesn't mean he's a bad player, but if he doesn't reach those heights, this is probably a slight overpay. Coming in at number 37, Donovan Mitchell, making $28 million also. Mitchell's young, has all-star level stats, and his team wins. He's made the playoffs every single year he's been in the league and has won a couple series. But after being in the league for several years, winning a first rounder doesn't do much for you. He has not been able to get past the second round. Him and Rudy Gobert are the core of this team, and they seem to work out okay with each other, off-court issues aside. The real problem seems to be with the point guard position, and how it rotates every year or two to somebody else. Some other vet dude who's supposed to come in and settle the team down and take some pressure off Donovan Mitchell. Maybe, just maybe, one day the Jazz will realize the point guard they need is 6'1" Donovan Mitchell. Whether they do or not, though, doesn't really matter, because this is a pretty darn good contract for a pretty darn good player. And at number 36, De'Aaron Fox with, wait for it, $28 million. Like Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox is a young star headlining a team. Unlike Mitchell, though, De'Aaron Fox is trapped in sack hell. A couple years ago, it seemed like he was on the cusp of taking this team to the playoffs and breaking that drought. But since then, it's been all lateral to slightly downhill. It's hard to blame Fox, given that he's in Sacramento. But fact of the matter is, he hasn't been really efficient. Now, this could be because he's forced to take a lot of inefficient shots, but he hasn't been efficient in the three, and the three is important in today's league. And if you can't shoot the three efficiently, you're going to be a little less valued than otherwise. Which is why, to me, this salary isn't really as equitable as Donovan Mitchell's salary. It's not an overpay, it's just not as good of a deal. Of course, he's probably just one good year away from being viewed like Trae Young. Number 35, Brandon Ingram, making $29.5 million a year. While Ingram is a former most improved player, he's still pretty young in his mid-20s. He's a versatile forward, both offensively and defensively, and he can shoot the three pretty well. His game has grown a lot throughout the years, and his ceiling seems to be somewhere around being a 25 5-5 guy who can shoot the three really well and can defend pretty well too. That sounds pretty fucking dope for a dude in his mid-20s. But is it like $30 million dope? I don't know. For me, when you're paying a young player $30 million, you're paying them that money because you see them as a future franchise-carrying guy, or even better, a current franchise-carrying guy. And I just don't know if that's Brandon Ingram. At least, I don't think that's Brandon Ingram in New Orleans. The chemistry between him and Zion probably isn't the best, and as long as they're paired together, both of them might be sacrificing a bit of their potential. Given his age and given the versatility and efficiency of his game, I'd say he's probably worth the money on the high end. More so somewhere else than on New Orleans. And at number 34, Jamal Murray making $29.5 million too. Jamal Murray is a big-bodied young point guard capable of superstar performances. Not star performances, super fucking star performances. This guy can take over a game and will his team to win on the biggest of stages. Unfortunately, injuries have nagged him throughout his entire career and flat out derailed the Nuggets last season. Nagging injuries are such a problem, even when he plays sometimes, he's playing hobbled and playing limited minutes. He does have a big body, and maybe that contributes to him breaking down. Maybe his body's so big because he's not the best at conditioning. Maybe he's just carrying too much muscle on his frame. Whatever the reason, for a young player, he's been oft injured. But does that make him an overpay? Prior to the bubble, I'd say yeah. But since the bubble, shit. With his ceiling that high, the Nuggets would be fools not to keep him at that price. Those kind of performances he had, they don't grow on trees. And to have multiple of them in a playoff run, fuck. That can be something special. Coming in at number 33, Gordon Hayward, our first $30 million man. Hayward's being paid by the Charlotte Bobcats, and there was a lot of surprise when he signed this massive contract last year. He was coming off a couple down years after a really horrific injury, but playing on that Bobcats team last year really revitalized his career. Shit, he shot 41.5% from the three. That's fucking outstanding. Not outstanding enough to justify $30 million a year, but pretty fucking outstanding. Given all he can still do and how he's adapted his game, I'd say Hayward's probably a $20 to $25 million a year guy. So the $30 million, it's a bit of an overpay, but not by an incredible amount. And at number 32, Chris Paul making $30 million from the Phoenix Suns. This guy ages like a fine wine that goes a little sour at the end. It's undeniable what he can bring to a team. It's also kind of undeniable, though, that he doesn't perform his best when it counts the most. For this single upcoming season, given what happened last season, it is totally worth it to pay him $30 million. On this team, or on any other team. And finishing up this video at number 31, D'Angelo Russell, making $30 million. Holy shit, D'Angelo Russell. With that kind of money, you can buy so much stuff. Maybe even Nick Young's trust back. Russell made an all-star game in Brooklyn and was a key piece of revitalizing that franchise, laying the groundwork for them to sign the big-time free agents they did in KD and Kyrie Irving. And when he got traded to Golden State, he put up even better numbers than his all-star year. But there are elements to his game where it seems that he needs to be the dominant player. And I'm not quite sure he's good enough to be the dominant player on a team that has contending aspirations. For him to justify this contract, so many things would have to go right. He'd have to return to his all-star level self, and then beyond that, really. He'd have to improve multiple elements of his game. And the Timberwolves would have to really start winning, like winning to the point where they're going to make noise in the playoffs winning. And if all that happens, bully for him. But in the likelihood that doesn't happen, this is kind of an overpay. He probably should be making more around the $24, $22 million range, not low-level franchise caliber money. Well, that wraps up this second video in our series analyzing the NBA's top salaries. Remember to like and subscribe and stay thick.